We've all been taught to say sorry even when we don't need to, but sometimes apologizing becomes a habit that weakens your confidence and makes you feel guilty for simply being yourself. There are certain things you should never feel sorry for, and today we're going to break them down so you can stand a little taller, speak with more confidence, and stop giving away your power with unnecessary apologies. When you think about boundaries, most people assume it means building walls that push people away or cutting people off. But the truth is, boundaries are not about rejection, they are about protection. They are not meant to punish anyone, they are meant to protect you and the values that matter to you most. The reason boundaries are so difficult for many of us to set is because we are worried that the other person is going to think we are selfish, cold, or unkind. We confuse saying no with being rude when really the opposite is true. The person without boundaries is the one who usually builds resentment, who silently carries frustration, and who eventually burns out because they have given too much of themselves away. That doesn't make them more loving or more generous, it just makes them exhausted and bitter. Setting boundaries is actually the most respectful thing you can do for both yourself and the people around you, because it defines what is acceptable and what is not, and it helps you show up with clarity instead of hidden frustration. Think about how you feel when someone crosses a line you never said out loud. You start to feel taken advantage of, you start to blame them, and you get upset that they cannot read your mind. The problem is, they never knew there was a line there in the first place. Boundaries require clarity. They require you to communicate in a way that makes it obvious what you can and cannot accept. That is not being selfish, that is being responsible for your own peace. Imagine if you lived in a house with no doors, no locks, and no fences. Anyone could come in at any time, eat your food, sit on your couch, take whatever they wanted, and leave. At first you may say nothing, but eventually you would feel violated because no one respected your space. Boundaries are the locks and doors of your personal life. They don't keep out everyone. They simply help you decide who has access and how much. Many people struggle with boundaries because they confuse them with ultimatums. A boundary says, this is what I will allow into my life, this is how I will treat myself, and this is how I expect to be treated. An ultimatum says, do this or else. Boundaries are not about control, they are about choice. You get to choose what you will accept and how you will respond when someone pushes past those limits. That choice is where your confidence comes from, because you stop feeling like a victim of everyone else's behavior and start owning your response to it. When you set a boundary, you are not telling someone else how to live their life, you are telling them how you will live yours. The hardest part about boundaries is not setting them, it is holding them when someone pushes back. People who benefit from your lack of boundaries are not going to cheer when you finally set them. They may call you selfish, dramatic, or too sensitive. They may push harder to see if you really mean what you say, and that is where your strength is tested. Do you fold and apologize for protecting yourself, or do you stand firm and remind yourself that their discomfort does not mean you are wrong? Boundaries are not meant to make everyone else happy. They are meant to keep you healthy. If someone gets upset that you will not answer calls after midnight, that is not your problem. If someone is offended that you don't want to lend money, that is not your problem. If someone thinks you are cold because you will not tolerate disrespect, that is not your problem. Their reaction is about them, not about you. When you set boundaries, you are also teaching people how to treat you. You are showing them that you value your time, your energy, your peace, and your worth. And when people see that, the ones who truly care about you will respect it, even if it takes them a little while to adjust. The ones who don't respect it will probably fade away, and while that may sting, it is better to lose people who only stick around because they can take advantage of you than to keep them at the cost of your peace. Boundaries are not a sign that you are unkind. They are a sign that you love yourself enough to stand up for what matters. And the more you practice setting them, the easier it becomes, and the less sorry you will feel for protecting yourself. Putting yourself first is one of the most misunderstood concepts in life because so many people have been raised to believe that prioritizing themselves is selfish. We are taught from a young age to serve others, to give more than we take, to bend and stretch until everyone else is comfortable, even if we are breaking inside. That constant pressure makes people feel guilty when they finally decide to choose themselves. But the truth is, putting yourself first is not about neglecting others. It is about making sure that you are strong enough, healthy enough, and grounded enough to be present for them in the first place. You cannot pour from an empty cup, and yet so many people try. They keep pouring and pouring until there is nothing left but frustration, exhaustion, and resentment. And then they wonder why their relationships feel heavy, why their jobs drain them, and why life feels like a constant cycle of giving without receiving anything back. When you put yourself first, you are not abandoning the people you care about. You are making sure that you are giving them the best version of yourself instead of what is left over. It means choosing rest when you are tired instead of running yourself into the ground. It means choosing your health instead of saying yes to commitments that make you sick with stress. It means choosing your values instead of bending them just to keep someone else happy. People who care about you will eventually understand this, even if they do not at first. And the people who don't understand are often the ones who benefited most from you, always putting yourself last. That is why they may call you selfish or accuse you of being distant when you finally start to prioritize yourself. But their discomfort is not proof that you are wrong. It is simply a sign that you are no longer willing to give away your energy at the expense of your own well-being. Think of an airplane. Before takeoff, you always hear the instruction, put your own oxygen mask on first before helping others. That isn't just a clever phrase, it is survival. If you cannot breathe, you cannot help anyone else breathe. If you collapse from lack of air, then both you and the person you wanted to help are in danger. Life works the same way. If you do not take care of yourself, if you do not protect your time, your energy, your peace, then you will not be able to show up for the people who need you in the long run. Putting yourself first is a long-term investment in every relationship you have because it ensures that the version of you they get is whole, present, and not weighed down by silent resentment. The people who truly love you do not want a drained, overworked, and empty version of you. They want you at your best, and that version of you only comes when you have enough courage to put yourself first. Courage because it does take strength to say no when everyone expects a yes. It takes confidence to step back and take a break when others push you to keep going. It takes self-respect to stop apologizing for needing space, for needing rest, or for simply needing to take care of yourself before you take care of anyone else. Putting yourself first is about trusting that you are worth the same care and attention you so freely give to others. It is about refusing to see self-care as selfishness. It is about remembering that when you are at your best, everyone around you benefits. But when you are running on empty, no one gets the best version of you. And that is why choosing yourself is not a weakness. It is one of the strongest decisions you can ever make. Saying no is one of the most powerful things you can learn to do, yet it is also one of the hardest because most people fear rejection, conflict, or disappointing others. From childhood, many of us are conditioned to be agreeable, to say yes to every request, to avoid making anyone upset. Over time, this habit makes us believe that saying no is rude or unkind, when in reality, it is one of the clearest forms of honesty. When you say no, you are not being cruel, you are simply stating your limits. You are being honest about what you can and cannot give, and that honesty is much more respectful than saying yes while secretly resenting it. Every time you force yourself to say yes when your heart is screaming no, you are teaching yourself that other people's comfort matters more than your peace, and slowly you chip away at your own confidence. The truth is, every yes is a trade. When you agree to something, you are agreeing to give away time, energy, and attention that could have gone somewhere else. When you keep saying yes to everyone else, what you are really doing is saying no to yourself, no to your priorities, no to the things that actually matter most to you. That is why so many people who struggle with saying no feel drained, scattered, and resentful. They are spread so thin, trying to please everyone, that they lose sight of their own goals and needs. Learning to say no is not about being difficult, it is about being intentional. It means you value your time enough to protect it. It means you understand that your energy is not unlimited. It means you respect yourself enough not to overextend just to keep someone else happy for a moment. Of course, the hardest part of saying no is the reaction you might get from others. People might guilt you, pressure you, or try to convince you to change your mind. They may accuse you of being selfish, unreliable, or uncaring. But here is the truth. People who genuinely respect you will respect your no, even if they don't like it. The ones who push back are usually the ones who are used to benefiting from your constant yes. Their frustration is not a reflection of your worth. It is a reflection of their expectation. You are not here to meet every demand. You are here to live a life that aligns with your values, your priorities, and your well-being. No is a complete sentence. It does not require an essay, an excuse, or a long explanation. The moment you start over-explaining, you begin apologizing for something that does not require an apology. You have the right to say no simply because something does not work for you. You have the right to decline without guilt, without shame, and without feeling like you owe anyone your peace. Think about how freeing it is to realize that your yes actually means more when you know how to say no. Because when you stop giving it out so easily, people start to value it more. Your time becomes precious, your energy becomes respected, and your commitments carry weight because you choose them carefully. The ability to say no is directly tied to your confidence. It shows that you are not afraid of losing approval, that you are not willing to sacrifice yourself for the comfort of others, that you trust yourself enough to stand firm in your decisions. The more you practice it, the stronger that confidence grows. At first, it might feel uncomfortable, even scary. You may feel guilt rise in your chest, but over time, you will see that nothing terrible happens when you say no. In fact, life becomes lighter. Your schedule clears. Your energy increases. Your relationships shift toward balance and mutual respect. You stop feeling like a doormat and start feeling like a person who has control over their own choices. Saying no is not the end of kindness. It is the beginning of living with authenticity, because it allows your yes to come from a genuine place instead of a place of pressure or guilt. Being yourself sounds simple, but for so many people it feels like one of the hardest things to do. From the time you are young, you are surrounded by expectations. Family wants you to behave a certain way. Society pushes you to fit into certain roles. Friends and coworkers may pressure you to go along with things just to belong. Over time, all of these layers of expectations can make you lose sight of who you really are. You begin to shrink your personality, hide your quirks, soften your opinions, and filter your words, all in an effort to be accepted. But the cost of that acceptance is high, because when you trade authenticity for approval, you end up living someone else's version of your life instead of your own. The more you hide yourself, the more disconnected you feel inside, and that disconnection is what creates unhappiness, anxiety, and a constant feeling of not being enough. Being yourself means embracing your values, your voice, your style, your dreams, and your flaws without apology. It means trusting that you are worthy of respect without having to twist or bend into what someone else thinks you should be. When you are yourself, you attract the right people into your life, people who appreciate you for who you truly are, not for the mask you put on. But when you pretend, when you perform, when you constantly apologize for the way you think or feel, you attract people who only like the version of you that isn't real. That's why so many relationships feel exhausting, because you are busy acting instead of living. The fear of being yourself usually comes from rejection. No one wants to feel judged or abandoned, so you convince yourself it is safer to stay small, to blend in, to go along with the crowd. But the truth is, no matter what you do, someone will always have an opinion. You could spend your whole life trying to please everyone, and still someone will criticize. If that is the case, why not be criticized for being true to yourself rather than for playing a part you never wanted in the first place? The reality is, rejection is not always a loss. When someone rejects the real you, they are simply making space for the people who will accept you. And when you reject yourself by pretending, you end up losing the most important relationship of all, the one you have with you. Being yourself also means giving up the need to constantly explain or justify who you are. You don't owe anyone an explanation for your personality, your preferences, or your choices. You don't need to apologize for being quiet in a loud room or loud in a quiet one. You don't need to shrink your confidence so someone else feels comfortable. You don't need to dull your shine so no one feels overshadowed. The right people don't want you smaller, they want you honest. And when you live authentically, you inspire others to do the same. Your courage gives permission for someone else to take off their mask too. There is also power in realizing that being yourself doesn't mean being perfect. It doesn't mean you never grow or change. Authenticity is not about staying the same forever. It's about being honest about who you are right now and being open about who you are becoming. It means owning your mistakes without shame, celebrating your wins without guilt, and showing up with honesty even when it is uncomfortable. When you stop apologizing for being yourself, you begin to feel lighter because you are no longer carrying the weight of everyone's expectations on your back. You stop living for approval and start living for truth. And in that space, life feels more real. Your connections feel more genuine, and your confidence begins to grow from the inside out. Success has a way of making people uncomfortable, not just the people around you, but sometimes even you yourself. When you achieve something, when you reach a goal, when you start rising above the level where you once were, there is a part of you that might feel guilty. You begin to think about how others will see it, whether they will feel left behind, whether they will resent you for it, whether they will call you arrogant or selfish for celebrating it. That quiet guilt is what makes so many people minimize their success. They downplay their achievements, they shrink their joy, they apologize for moving forward as if winning is something to be ashamed of. But the truth is, success is not something you should ever feel sorry for because it does not take anything away from anyone else. Your success is the result of your work, your effort, your sacrifice, and your persistence. You know the nights you stayed up late, the days you kept going when you wanted to quit, the doubts you pushed through, the risks you took, and the failures you turned into lessons. None of that was handed to you. It was built by you, and no one has the right to make you feel wrong for it. When you apologize for your success, you send a message to yourself and to others that you do not fully deserve it. And once you start believing that, you begin to carry shame instead of pride for something you earned. Success should not create shame, it should create inspiration. Because every time you win, you are showing what is possible. You are proof to others that hard work can pay off, that growth is real, that people are capable of more than they think. If someone chooses to see your success as a threat, that is about their insecurity, not about your achievement. You cannot dim your light just because someone else refuses to shine theirs. The right people will celebrate you, not compete with you. They will be inspired, not intimidated. And those are the people who deserve to be in your corner. It is also important to understand that your success might not always look like what others expect. Sometimes success is starting your own business. Sometimes it is leaving a toxic job. Sometimes it is setting a boundary that everyone else told you was impossible. Success is personal. It is defined by you, not by the opinions of others. That is why you cannot waste time explaining or justifying your victories to people who do not understand the battles you had to fight to get there. They did not walk in your shoes. They did not face your storms. They did not carry your weight, so they do not get to decide whether your success is valid. There will always be people who try to make you feel guilty for moving ahead because your progress reminds them of their own stagnation. but you are not responsible for fixing their feelings. You are responsible for honoring the work you have done, for owning the progress you have made, and for stepping into the confidence that comes with knowing you earned it. When you celebrate your success without apology, you give others permission to do the same. You become an example of what it looks like to rise without shame. You remind people that there is no need to shrink in order to fit in, no need to pretend you are less than you are just to keep others comfortable. Your success is not the problem. Their refusal to celebrate their own potential is, and if you start apologizing for it, all you do is join them in a place of limitation instead of leading them toward possibility. Success should be carried with humility, but never with guilt. Humility means remembering where you came from, remembering the people who supported you, remembering that growth is a journey and not a destination. But humility is very different from apology. Humility says, I am grateful. Apology says, I am sorry. Gratitude for success builds confidence. Apology for success tears it down. When you stop apologizing for your success, you begin to walk taller. You start to own your story, and you allow yourself to live the rewards of the work you put in without carrying the unnecessary weight of shame or guilt that was never yours to carry in the first place.